Morning again, and welcome to everyone this morning. It's a beautiful January morning, and believe it or not, the year is 1/11th already gone. So I'm grateful for being here this Sunday morning, this last day of January. I want to thank all of the worship team members for all their commitment and dedication to making this a beautiful worship service this morning. I'm going to visit with you this morning on the idea of possibilities for 2021, and I've added a subtitle, Tough Times and Tough People. Last week, I referred to the Reverend Robert Schuller, the late great preacher from Garden Grove, California, who went door to door with his wife, meeting people in their church's neighborhood. Well, I went back and listened to some of Schuller's sermons and thought it might be interesting to preach a similar style of message for you today. So today's sermon is a compilation of Schuller and XK. Hold on to your horses. I was talking to a best friend, Ray Smith, this week, who lives in Maryland and is preparing for a medical procedure. Like my wife, he's a cancer survivor. Unlike my wife, he's almost summited Mount Kilimanjaro. Our very own Carol Bloom has summited Kili. I said to him, brother, you and Tamara have endured some tough times in life. You deserve to be in a special category of tough people who push through struggles and last. He said, that's a good way to look at it. Both of them have realized the proceeds of gifts well invested in possibility. Tough, tough people. In the song Sign from Above by Lady Gaga and Elton John, they sing, when I was young, I felt immortal. And not a day went by without a struggle. I lived my days just for the nights. I lost myself under the lights. When I was young, I felt immortal. Where does our feeling of immortality go over the years? It seems to slip through our fingers like sand as life presents tough times. Well, here are a few ideas that I want to share with you. Proverbs 23:7 is a favorite verse of mine. It reads, as a person thinks in their heart, so are they. I tried to summarize that simple Bible verse with a little slogan I think you can remember. The me I see is the me I will be. The me I see is the me I will be. How do you see yourself today? How do you rate your self-confidence? Do you see yourself as valuable or worthless? I saw a cartoon a while back of two bums sitting on a bench. Their toes were coming out of their shoes, their clothes were tattered, and their hats were disheveled. One bum said to the other bum, no man is completely worthless. He can always serve as a lousy example. How do you see yourself today? Well, there are three major emotional demons that I believe block persons of faith in life that could cause us to become possibility thinkers. The three emotional demons are inferiority, inadequacy, and incompetence. In all of these three negative emotions, you can find release. And with the release, you will begin to think it's possible. There's so much negativity in our country today. It's incredible. I've been talking to people over the last few months, and I know I've been in touch. People look at the COVID-19 response and the unemployment situation all around them, and they are concerned. Rightfully so. There's a widespread negativity in our country, even with the vaccine rolling out. What's the solution? The solution is not to look at the problem, but to look at the possibilities. Absolutely. And it all starts when you begin to believe that you can do more than you ever imagined yourself doing. Reverend Schuller speaks of speaking at a convention when there were 2,000 salespersons, super successful direct sales operation. And the leader was a woman who dropped out of school. Her father was a university graduate and very successful, a top corporate chief. And when his daughter dropped out of high school, he knew this was terrible. So she went through life with a negative self-image. I'm nobody. I can't do anything. I don't have a high school diploma, etc., etc. She got into possibility thinking. And then she was introduced to a product, a very good product, a product that people needed, a product that had integrity. And she heard people say, you can become a salesperson. She said, I can't be a salesperson. I'm no salesperson, never have been. And besides, I'm not very smart, I guess. But then she said, I heard I should think it is possible and I can. So she signed up, she got involved, and now she has 2,000 employees in her company. She's super successful, but it all starts right here in your head. And there is no person listening to me who doesn't have the freedom to choose. Or you may have an idea, as we heard from Sally Atkinson and her birds, I might add. But you say these are tough times. I say tough times never last, but tough people do. If I had the money, I would buy billboards all along the roads in the country, all 50 states. If I had the money, I would buy billboards in the unemployed pockets of America, and I'd plaster only one sentence. Tough times never last, but tough people do. Stick it up in your company bulletin board. Put those words up in the bookstores or put them in the schools. We have some educators here. Wherever you are, put it up in your home. Tough times never last, but tough people do. I have personally made a few trips to South Korea. And I remember reading about South Korea right after the war. I have never in my life heard of such a bleak, barren, desolate, and defeated country. There wasn't a single green living tree in South Korea following the Korean War. You know why? During the war, times were so tough, they cut down the trees and ate the leaves. They peeled the bark and they boiled the bark in water. They kept boiling until the bark was all boiled and they had a thick black soup, and they lived on the soup, bark soup. Spending the sub-zero winters, they consumed the wood for fuel until every tree was gone. Tough times. What a UU thinks in their heart matters. If they think in their heart they can be somebody, they can overcome. They are a tough person. Tough times never last, but tough people do. Sometimes I say to myself, here in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces, these are super successful people. And I look at Brother Flowers right now, and others like him who are successful, and many have retired. They got it all figured out, I say to myself. They've got life on cruise control. What is it I can say to them at this stage of their lives? They don't seem to have any problems or worries. They got it made. Who am I to say, think on these things, do this or do that? Then I say to myself, maybe there's one person out there who's still trying to get it together. Someone like me. If I can just inspire that one person today, I will have done my job. So I'm here to say to that one person, tough times don't last. Tough people do. We think we're going through a difficult time with this pandemic, but that's because we're focusing on what we can't do because of the lockdown, wearing masks. No doubt it's very serious when 400,000 of your country people have died. Maybe you're going through some medical issues, financial strains, or relationship problems. Think of the possibilities before you. With the extra time on your hands, you are free to do magnificent things. And this church needs you to do the magnificent. Focus not on the problems, but the possibilities. Tough times never last, but tough people do. The Deuteronomist, as translated by the late Reverend Peter Rabel, says, "We build on foundations we did not lay. We warm ourselves at fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant." We, my friends, must continue to build on those foundations and tend to those flames of light that were lit for us. And when we're tired, we'll sit under the shade of those trees. But as for now, there are many possibilities out there for you. What dreams do you have for this church? How do you want to see change in the coming year? In what ways do you want this community to grow? My friends, you are only limited by your own imagination. South Korea reimagined and transformed itself. Today, it is a G8 powerhouse economy, world leader, filled with trees that line the boulevards as you drive through Seoul. This works. Schuller tells the story of his church's early days. One day, he saw smoke curling up from the north. He wondered if there was a fire and drove out to look. There were huge mountains of orange trees bulldozed on top of each other. Men were burning them. And he asked, why? And they said, somebody's building a park there. He asked, who? They said, Walt Disney. Disneyland opened, and the rest is history. Walt Disney, when he was 21 years old, experienced his first total failure. Talk about being poor. He lived on a sofa and old sofa cushions. It was an old castaway sofa. He slept on them. Food? Beans out of a tin can. Soup made of bark. Tough times never last. Tough people do. Let me tell you something. You are tougher than you think you are. You are tremendous, and here's why. You have the freedom today to set any goal you want to set, to pick any dream you want to pick. And I'll never get finished telling people I've learned one thing. There are no great people. That's an illusion. It's an error of perception. There are no great people, my friends. There are just ordinary people. Only some have made bigger decisions and had bigger dreams and unstoppable ambitions. You choose the dream, and from that point on, the dream will choose your future. And if you're unemployed today, you're lucky. I mean, you're free to start something new. Absolutely. It takes guts to leave the ruts, of course. The me I see is the me I'll be. Now, there are always those who carry it a bit too far. I remember a funny story. A guy was leading the parade down the street. He and the band and the trombonist became ill at the last minute. So he put out a call for a trombonist. One young man stepped forward who was suited up, and they were marching down the street. They got into their number, and the trombonist was horrible. When it was all finished, the band leader said, "Why didn't you tell me you couldn't play the trombone?" Kid said, "How did I know? Never tried it before." Walt Disney said something. They asked, "How did you get from a can of beans and a failure and living on sofa cushions outdoors? How did you get from there to where you are now?" He said, "I never knew what I couldn't do." Good gracious. He never knew what he couldn't do. So I was willing to try anything. That is possibility thinking. What are you trying to do this year? What are your goals? What are your dreams? How do you see yourself 11 months from today? Here is something that I invite you to ponder. The you see is the you'll be. Likewise, the you see is the you'll be. The greatest slugger of all time died 2 weeks ago. He broke home run records before they were juicing in baseball. Then he went on to become a great baseball executive, business leader, and philanthropist. During Hank Aaron's memorial service last Wednesday, Dr. Valerie Rice, the president of and dean of the Morehouse School of Medicine, told how Hank and Mrs. Aaron gave the medical school $3 million. When his wife was hesitant about the gift, Aaron said to her, "I got this." Dr. Rice remarked that Aaron, I quote, used his gift to make a living, and he used the proceeds of that gift to make a life. What kind of life are you making with your gifts? Don't let thoughts of mortality get you down. Don't let negativity get you down. Don't let this pandemic get you down. Keep using your gifts. You have the choice. Make a living or make a life. Speaking of mortality, I'm going to close with this story I heard in the movie News of the Day about a newsreader portrayed by Tom Hanks after the Civil War. It goes like this. For this final story of the day, a man dead and buried has risen from the grave. 3 days ago in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a Mr. Alfred Blackstone of 47 years fell into a stupor. His wife called the physician, but there was no pulse. It was determined that Mr. Blackstone was, most unfortunately, dead. He was buried very swiftly on the grounds of the local church where, as divine providence would have it, a wedding was due to take place the following day. But nearing the church doors, the bride abruptly stops. From the cemetery beyond, she heard this inexplicable sound. Desperate, unmistakable hammering of life. In a state of frantic excitement, she ran to the nearby grave marked Alfred Blackstone. And within moments, the entire wedding congregation was digging. Finally, poor Alfred Blackstone was pulled from the earth, very much alive. And from his widow Blackstone's embrace, Alfred turned to the groom and said, and I quote, "Feller, when you get in that church and she says, 'Till death do us part,' don't you believe a word of it. If anyone says you can't do something, don't you believe a word of it." Ashe, amen, and let it be so.